is actually more like an informative talking than actually a lecture. Okay, so we will be looking here about some information about the idea of immortality that exists or has been current in this country for a long time. Many of this information we have never heard before, and it's very important for us that are trying to disseminate Spiritism to know about it, to know about a little bit about the story of the country, to know about the people that have been researching immortality for so long, up to what point they have reached. Of course, we all know as Spiritists that everything started here in the US, more particularly in our state, New York, in Hydesville with the Fox sister. So in 1848, they started witnessing some form of communication with the knockings. So this is old news. So let's talk, we will be try to focus more on the things that we don't hear that much, but it's actually part of the story. Just another fact that is very important for us when we are talking about immortality. Immortality actually is the immortality of the soul. 90% of people in the world believes in immortality. Sometimes when we mention this number, people begin to doubt it. But if we start thinking about the religions that we have, Catholics, Protestants, Buddhism, Hinduism, Spiritists, all of them, they do believe in the mortality of the soul. What is different is what they think is going to come after. Only the atheists believe that there is nothing. Other than that, all the rest believes that there is something, and it varies according to their beliefs. In Spiritism, we believe we go back and we start preparing for a new journey until we reach the stage of superior spirits. So right from one of the presidents that we have, Abraham Lincoln, he was saying that man was made for immortality and that surely God would not have been created such a being as man to exist only for a day. No, man was made for immortality. So starting with one of the presidents that we had in this country, he already had this belief. And of course we heard so much about Abraham Lincoln and how, especially because of losing one of his child, his wife started to seeking psychic people to see if she could get in contact with her beloved son, and brought all these psychics to the White House. There are books written about that, all of this. But it was a belief of this president as well. So in Spiritism, we understand that we are all here to evolve. And so we started our journey actually trying to reach a point where we are going to become perfect or purified spirits. So when we are incarnate, we have the opportunity of making amends, of using our free will, either for good or for bad, and we are always going to be subject to the law of cause and effect. So it's very important for us at this point to be each time more mindful about our actions and about our thoughts. The idea then is to reach perfection. Allan Kardec says that death is nothing but the destruction of the material envelope. The soul abandons it like a butterfly leaving its chrysalis. However, it retains fluidic body or perispirit. So we learn in Spiritism from the messages from the spirits that the body, the physical body that we have, is going to be left behind. And it doesn't mean that with that we are going to die or to cease to exist, as some people may believe. Emily Dixon that is very well known and respected as well in this country, in her tombstone it's written, called back. Called back to where? I also believe that there has always been a fixed quantity of life on this planet, and that this quantity can neither be increased or decreased. Interesting fact. We learned from Emmanuel in on the way to the light that we have 24 billion souls on earth, and that we take turns being born here. So it's the same souls. And he's talking about the same thing here. He's saying, you know, there is nothing is lost, the same quantity remains, and we're just moving around. And he says, nothing, not even life, could be created or destroyed. So, therefore, he assumed that life unities changing from one form to another were responsible for all life in this planet. So, among being incarnates and discarnates, we change those forms. So he wanted to prove, to find a way to communicate with it, to show that life exists after death. When, well, some people call him, what he tried to invent, telephone for the dead, to the dead, right? And he didn't manage to make such a device, unfortunately. We hope that we will have something similar, I don't know when, but soon. And so it's interesting again that when he was dying and he was in the hospital with his wife, he looked at her and the doctor and said, "It's very beautiful over there." So showing and demonstrating that at that moment he was able to see and to prove that theory that he believed that there is something after life, that it does not cease. So we have those records showing in the American magazine, later Forbes magazine, the New York Times in 1921 also published some of these researches that he was conducting. Another interesting thing that we know about Thomas Edison is that he is one of the responsible for one spiritual colony over California that is called Summerland. So he is very much associated with this spiritual colony, Summerland. And I'm sure that he is always looking after us all over the US as well. So these articles plus the additional publications from Roon's publication of Edison's diary point to the fact that he was actually working on this psychic phone. Nowadays it is called soul phone. So we hope to have some of them soon. Here is I just brought some images from old newspapers that talks about Edison's research. So we are not going to be reading all of that, just for you to look about, you know, he wanted to communicate with the souls. Did you look at pay attention to this one as well? So all this, you know, this publication is trying to show actually how he was working with that. Another important figure, that was a person that we had here, is P.T. Barnum. Also, there was a time in the U.S., especially after the Secession War, that people were losing so many people, to the loved ones, to the war. And of course, we can only imagine how devastated they were. And this was another reason why they wanted so much at that point to believe that there was something after this life, that there was life after death. And one of the things that they started doing in this country was to experiment with photographs. They were taking photographs of people, and all of a sudden a ghost would appear in the pictures. So this became a huge thing here, mainly because of that, because people were really devastated about the tremendous loss and the amount of people that were dying because of the war. And so it was very common, and one of these pictures that we have is that of the barn with the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, and also the wife of Abraham Lincoln also showed in one of these pictures. There are some pictures that they are considered to be a hoax. Okay, there are many. They were very much analyzed. But there are others that they cannot say that were not true pictures. There was an exhibition here in the US, actually in New York, the Metropolitan Museum, about 8 years ago, that was called Photograph of the Occult. You can buy the book in Metropolitan Museum if you want to. And I went to that exhibition like about 5 times because a lot of people would come from all over here, the US and Brazil, wanted to see this exhibition there, and I would be going there all the time. All the time that I went, it was so crowded. Actually, people were actually showing a huge interest in the situation. And there they presented some of the pictures that were considered to be hoax, and others that they could not prove that they were not. And there are, of course, some names and research. Here we are not talking about the mediums. We are talking about mainly people that are considered in this country to be very important for their accomplishment, but that also had this occult side in their lives. And so those are the ones that we are bringing. There are many pictures that are so famous and undoubtedly real in terms of being scrutinized and not being proven wrong. I even brought one that has nothing to do with the American, but just for us to see some that are very clear pictures. This one is the medium Chico Xavier with Sister Josefa, one of the materializations. This one is the famous spirit Kate King that was researched during 3 years by nothing less than Sir William Crookes. And you know that to get a title of Sir is not an easy thing in the Kingdom of England, right? And so he researched this spirit so thoroughly that he was able to analyze her hair and even the blood, and to make it sure, and with that he could see that the medium that was giving the ectoplasm for this manifestation had a complete different set of hair and a different blood type. This is also a very interesting picture. It was actually shown here in the US many years ago, and the funny thing that they were saying is that there were 4 people in this car and none of them had any lesion whatsoever. And they were wondering whether it was because of this angel that appeared next to the accident photograph that they took at the scene. In current days, what do we do? How do we research about immortality? So in terms of Spiritism and other spiritualist doctrines, we know that through mediumship, mediumistic communications or psychic phenomena, we can do that. Through past life regression, through experiences of transcommunication, spirit messages, and by the experiences of the spirits through photographs. Like we said, again, there are many of them, and some of the names that I don't recall now that were very famous in the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century in this country, that was proven to be a hoax. Even like the famous, very, very famous Brothers Davenport. brothers Davenport, after the Fox sisters, were very well known, a huge success in this country, but they were proved to be a fake later on. Okay. Another important person in this country, that is George Meek. He was a retired industrialist, revolutionized the air conditioning, so thanks to him we can have a comfortable life during summertime, right? And he made a fortune out of that. But again, he was obsessive with life after death. So what did he do with his fortune? He created the Meta Science Foundation, a non-profit enterprise, and he started analyzing the survival of the spirit. He conducted some of experiences himself. He had lots and lots of measured devices, and in here we can see this is the silver cord. Okay, one of the first out-of-body experience captured on film, made by this man in the laboratory that he has created. And this is the second one that he captured on film. So we are talking about, you know, people that, according to this country, is living and the standards of, you know, being a very well successful person, and smart, business oriented, but at the same time had this need to understand about immortality. So in one of his interviews, let's see what he says. A new religion called spiritualism took roots in England, the US, and many other countries. A variant called Spiritism took roots and grew in France, Brazil, and other countries. There were many who thought that this new religion would sweep the world. It has not done so. Why? I think we are asking that ourselves even today. Let's see what was the interpretation of Mr. Meek about this. The answer has been provided during the last few years from spiritualists now living on the higher planes. From the higher perspective and speaking through the remarkable direct voices mediumship of Leslie Flint, Sir William Crookes, Sir Oliver Lodge, Sir William Barrett, Emma Harding Britton, Alan Terry, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle have said time and again with great sadness, spiritualism has lost its spirituality. It has concerned itself with trivia. And this is the main thing that we in Spiritism do not want to try to do. Yes, we wanted to know, we wanted to be sure, we would love to have all these devices that would be able to prove to the world that there is life after death. But we are not that much concerned with the phenomena, and if worldwide that this exists, to the cost of leaving behind the care that we have to have with our inner transformation. So the main point is we are in this case, like he was saying, spiritualism is much more focusing on the phenomena itself, and is losing touch with the spirit. And in the Spiritism, what we are trying to do is exactly the opposite. We are not that interested in knowing, you know, what are the spirits they are communicating with us, what are their names, what did they do, or the phenomena itself, but to try to learn from them, to listen, learning from their experiences, especially after they have passed it and are capable of reaching us, so that we cannot commit the same mistake. There is this famous phrase that wisdom is when you actually learn from others' mistakes. right? So if we want to live in wisdom, we should hear to others' experience so that we can make sure that our path are not going to be having this all these ordeals. So look at the words of Spirit according to him. Planet Earth, lowest astral, middle astral, highest astral, causal and mental and celestial. So much similar to what we believe in Spiritism as well, right? When we know that there is what we call here the umbral, in the lower regions, and then the middle one that would be nosular, and then the other ones that are higher and higher to the point when we reach celestial things. And so he believes that they are actually sharing the same space, and this is actually what we learn as well. So look at how far this man went in terms of understanding and with his research. So he says, the frequencies of the spirit world are much finer than the energies we are familiar with here on Earth, such as electricity, radio signals, and light. Most of the spirit world energies are imperceptible, not only by our physical senses, but also by modern scientific equipment. So he was an engineer. He was using all these technical and scientific terms to try to explain to us how we can have worlds and energy interacting without us perceiving that. And this is actually a brilliant thing. Another one that we have that was very well known and committed to the proving the immortality is Mr. William O'Neill. He was a psychic medium, and he received communications from the beyond, and he put together and constructed an acoustic electromagnetic apparatus. And he was able to talk to the late George, is a different George, Miller. Miller, a NASA scientist who had died in '67 and had now come to the vibration of Earth to assist Meek, because Meek and O'Neill worked together, in opening a communication bridge between the two worlds. O'Neill and Miller went on to record more than 20 hours of dialogue between '79 and '82. Thomas Edison would like to be close friends with them, right? Because they were actually finding a way to, to communicate. And this, it's very interesting when you have the opportunity to look for this instrumental transcommunication. They have incredible results and the research that they have been doing. Nowadays, when we talk about that, it can be a little dangerous, it can be a little tricky, because we have all those shows, Paranormal, and I don't remember the name of others, but that people go with the ghost hunters, right? I mean, they are well-intentioned, and it's good, but the seriousness that we are talking about in terms of Thomas Edison, in terms of Meek, in terms of O'Neill, perhaps is not the same. I mean, these people may be looking more for fame nowadays. Is another different type of what they call the shows that, oh my God, reality shows, right? It's more like a reality show to them than actually really true research, right? Research. There are many people doing serious things in terms of research nowadays, and we have to respect them, but there are some that are still not doing that much. So Leslie Flinch, 1911, 1994, was a very gifted medium in terms of ectoplasm and physical effect. That's the reason why they could, through him, make it possible to conduct those kind of interviews. In case you are wondering, because sometimes when I talk about instrumental communication, we think that is something out of this world, that it may be so. No, it's very simple. It's the same thing as mediumship. Instead of using a person, they use a device. So there is nothing for us to be, oh, they use typewriters, they use tape recorders, they can use a computer, they can use our iPad, our iPhone, all the tablets that we have. But in order for the spirits to communicate, there must be a medium donating energy, ectoplasm, for this to happen. Whether it's the medium himself or herself that is giving the talk or giving the communication of the spirit, or it's showing on your handheld device, it's the same, absolutely the same thing. We just say instrumental transcommunication because then, instead of saying that the message is coming from a human being, it's coming from a device, but always with the help and assistance of a human being that must be a medium, because otherwise there is no way that the spirits can communicate with us. They need this energy in order to communicate. He was capable, when he was present, to have, you see, 500 tapes featuring many people, many that have passed on and giving information. Okay, so next time you hear about, oh, someone received a communication, all of a sudden there was a message in your iPhone or something, and I mean, there was a medium nearby. Robert Hare, okay, the scientist and psychical researchers, is a very important professor of the University of Pennsylvania, and he considered an act of duty to his fellow creatures to bring whatever influence he possessed to attempt to stem the tide of popular madness, which in defiance of reason and science was fast setting in favor of the gross delusion called Spiritism. So he was completely against. We have to understand that at the time, in the beginning of the 19th century especially, and here in this country, after the huge success of the Sister Fox, it became a national commotion. All over, people, mediums were appearing, were doing the photographs or through the communication. Many of them, like we said, only for personal gains. And so this professor, very well known and respected, decided to do some investigation because, as a professor, he said, "I don't believe it. It's all nonsense, but for me to say it with 100% accuracy, I have to research that. I cannot just state something out of my opinion." He was a scientist. And so at 72, he began his investigation, and he came to the conclusion that he was wrong. For a professor at this university, and as important as he were at his time, to retract his own opinion was a very, very important thing, huge thing for the spiritualist movement at that time. So Kardec, in the Spiritist Review, which is actually a very important source of knowledge for us to understand the beginning of the movement all over the world. And I'm actually collecting, I was going to be talking about it later, but I'm going to say it now. We are translating the Spiritist Review. They are 12 volumes, 4,500 pages. And probably we'll be releasing them once a year so that you will have time to read the 4,500 pages with time. It's 12 volumes. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm compiling only the articles that are related to the United States. I have 300 pages already. So it's very important for us to know what was going on here. And so in this case, I brought something for you so that you can see. If the European press did not support Spiritism, the same did not happen in America. There is in America, as everywhere else for that matter, a general and a special press. The former gave Spiritism much more coverage than in our case. The special press accounts for 18 Spiritist newspapers only in the US, for which 10 are weekly and several of large format. 18 publications in the 19th century, beginning of 20th century. And the large number of American newspapers that covers the subject prove one thing: they have enough readers to sustain that. And he goes on and say in the January 1869, regarding nationalities, strictly speaking, there are no civilized countries in Europe and America where there are no Spiritists. They are most numerous in the United States of America. Its number is thought to be 4 million by some, which is a lot, and by others in 10 million. This later figure is evidently exaggerated because it would comprise more than a third of the population, which is unlikely. So we are talking about 30 million people in this country, where 4 million were spiritualists or spiritists. Where are they? And I think our mission here is to rescue that. It's part of this history. Everything started here. I love when we have to talk about Spiritism here, and because you know how Brazil is so proud to be the biggest country in terms of Spiritism and the Spiritist followers in the world. But Spiritism was not born there. I know how important it is for us to say that Allan Kardec was a Frenchman and a European man, and that Spiritism was actually all compiled and everything was developed there. But this is the credo. So when I think that God is so wise that he involved three different countries, US and France, Europe, if you want to call it that, and Brazil. And all of us have a very important aspect in this journey. Everything started here. And we know how Americans like to be the number one, right? And we are Americans ourselves, right? And so, and I say, wait, Brazil was number one for a while because we're growing fast. I don't know if you know, but nowadays we are 82 Spiritist centers in the US. We are already the sixth greatest nation in terms of Spiritist center. But we don't like number 6, do we? So we have all this potential. We have all the souls that have inhabited here before, and they are coming back, and they wanted to look for us. We are just in the first phase, start paving the road for that to happen. That's why sometimes we think, oh, it's been 10 years we're here, and where is, 10 years is nothing when we are talking about, of course, immortality, but we are paving the road, and it's going to happen, and we are going to bring not only the 4 million, but much more, perhaps the 10 and more that they are talking about here. In Europe, the number can be estimated in 1 million. Can you imagine that? Where we say that was actually the Spiritism developed, it was written in France, in Europe, only 1 million. We're 4 million here. Maybe 10, right? We can estimate the number of Spiritists worldwide in 6 or 7 million, 4 here. Even if consider half of it, history offers no other example of doctrine which in less than 15 years has gathered a similar number of followers spread over the entire surface of the globe. So again, we are not talking about Spiritism becoming the religion of the future. but the future of religions. So it's very well known, and all the spirits tell us that the idea is not for us to go there and, you know, brainwashing anyone or making anyone change their beliefs or religions, but that they can incorporate in their religions and beliefs the ideas that Spiritism brings. It will come a point in time that we will no longer be capable of saying there is not death after life. To tell you the truth, I don't understand at this point why we still do not believe in reincarnation. Only in this country, there are so many renowned scientists that have received grants from this country, that have conduct researches, that have attested facts to reincarnation, and we still disregard that. And of course, we can never make a presentation about immortality without talking about Benjamin Franklin. And Benjamin Franklin, at the age of 21st, he wrote what he wanted to be written in his tombstone. And this is what he says: the body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the cover of a notebook, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more elegant edition, revised and corrected by the author. That's so fantastic, right? I have a phrase myself. Maybe I can put that in my tombstone. I can't wait to live in the future. It will be so fantastic. So, Andrew Jackson Davis. Some of the names that we have to also bring about in terms of learning from immortality. I don't know if many of you know or not, but Andrew Jackson Davis, at a certain point, he was practically literate. And at the age of 19, he wrote a treatise that if we wanted to study today, it's so hard. Of course, later on, he started educating himself. He ended his life actually with a medical degree. But he brought so much from his ability as a medium. Edgar Cayce is another very known name in this country. Edgar Cayce, I don't know also if you know about that, he would be receiving and helping people always without charging anything from them. And Leonard Piper, that was thoroughly researched also, and the examples that we have of her communications and her mediumship, they are absolutely fantastic. What is interesting about Mrs. Piper is that she didn't believe she was a medium. She didn't believe in the afterlife at all. But then she would get into trance and would send all this incredible information. Brian Weiss, we were talking about researchers, a psychiatrist that started researching immortality. Oops, what did I do here? And Ian Stephenson, that is absolutely amazing. He has 2,500 documented cases of reincarnation. Of course, because many of them are in India, people perhaps do not take that much attention to that. And why are there these cases in India? Because only Hindus can reincarnate and we can't. No, because there people pay attention, because they do believe in reincarnation. So when your child comes to you and say, "Oh, I remember I was your grandparent," you're not going to dismiss the child with, you know, thinking that this child is going to be labeled like a weirdo, right? You're going to hear that, and then you're going to research, and when Dr. Professor Ian Stephenson actually started conducting his researches with Professor Banerjee from the University of India, they encountered countless reports of reincarnation. And with Grant, he could actually go and research each one of them. And he has all of that here in this country.
Even in these 20 cases, 2 cases
yeah.
in Brazil. So he went to Brazil. It was really awesome.
Yeah, he went to Brazil and he worked closely with Hernani Guimarães Andrade, which is a very important name as well. Mr. Hernani Guimarães, Professor Hernani Guimarães Andrade in Brazil, he has 75 documented cases. Unfortunately, because he was in Brazil, he didn't have grants for 2,500 cases, but he managed to have these 75 cases that, you know, they go to the place, they analyze the birthmarks, they talk to the family of that these children are saying they were born. It's amazing. It's very interesting to read some of those books. Raymond Moody also, that brings other, you know, vast literature in explaining to us life after life, showing, you know, examples of near-death experiences, which actually is huge in this country. It's about, last time I researched that, was about 6 million people in this country remember near-death experiences. It's talking about 6 million. It's a lot of people, right? So, can we define life and death when it starts, since we are immortal? It's to where we're going, from where we came. Those are what we call the perennial questions. So, in terms of the materialistic view, who am I? A body with 70 trillion cells. Spiritist view, I'm a mortal spirit. Where did I come from? Parents, genes, the spirit world. How should I behave? Doesn't matter. It's going to end everything. Christ-like consciousness. Where am I going? Back to nature or spirit world? Death and then what? Errant stage. What do I take when I die? Nothing. Knowledge, experience. So here we see, this is actually made by Luis Lima. And here we see some of the comparisons of what it is to have the knowledge or the belief and what it represents. So in terms of my materialistic view, my life is limited. I have no visibility past death. My happiness is based on physical things, and I'm unable to comprehend human justice. So we have birth, incarnation, death. Then we go to what we call errant stage. And then birth, incarnation, death again. What is death? At what moment can we declare that we are dead? But let's see. According to the human view and the Spiritist view, we will have different definitions. So, defining death. Oh. Before, we would define whether people were dead or not by placing our ear in their chests and seeing whether we could hear or not their heartbeats. If I was your doctor, you would be buried alive. I'm partially deaf, so can you imagine that? How hard it would be. That's why the expression "saved by the bell come." I don't know, do you know about this expression? Do you know why, when it originated?
Yes.
I know.
Tell us.
They used to put a bell, they started to ring that thing, the bell over there was click, 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 click.
It was actually wrapped in your food because they, after time when they were going to see, you know, to remove the cadavers and things like that, they would realize that there was a lot of them that the dead had moved inside the coffin. And so there was such a large number of that happening that they started, that was actually originated in England, and saved by the bell. Originated in England, and they were actually putting that, placing that in case, you know, he was analyzed by Dr. Jussara. And I would say that I can't hear anything, right? And at that point, I could not even say that I could not even realize that I couldn't hear that well, right? So, you know, and so that they would be at the middle of the night, perhaps you could be hearing the corpse ringing the bell. Then we had the stethoscope that was an advancement already. The EKG, and nowadays what we use is the EEG. It's only when we have brain death that we are considered to be dead. But in terms of the spiritism, when are we dead? Here, when I die, I'm considered to be dead. But discarnate is only when my silver cord is ripped. So there is a little period between dead and discarnate. That is the time that I will be completely released, spiritually speaking, from my body. So science cannot define that because it's not material, cannot define life, cannot define death, but they cannot be separated because it's just us. It's always us as spirits, as soul continuing. So this is how we release, we are liberated when we die. And the life of the spirit is eternal, the life of the body transitory and temporary, and when the body dies, the soul returns to the eternal life. But the return can be very beautiful and happy, not necessarily for those who stayed, but surely for the one that is departing and for the ones that are receiving you after death. So the knowledge, why is it important? Because this is one thing that we always have to keep in mind in terms of Spiritism. Spiritists sometimes are called the snobs because we like to read, we like to understand why the belief that we are following, which is very important, which is actually through the reason, through the understanding, through the knowledge that we are capable of transforming ourselves. But we don't do that just because we wanted to be snobs or because we wanted to be better than others. We do that because we really want to understand. But understanding means take action in relation to what we have this knowledge about, you know. It's not just that we come here, we hear all of that about immortality and we live here and life remains the same. No, now we are supposed to be, you know, doing something about it, to start meditating about it. Even if the transformation doesn't come immediately, and it will not, you know, it's not in our human nature to go by leaps and bounds. We go gradually changing ourselves. But it's important, you know, to keep that in mind, to have this understanding that we are actually immortal. And that our life goes on, and that we will have other opportunities to return, to start fresh, like Benjamin Franklin said, in a new version, better version of himself, of ourselves. And it's fantastic. The idea of just being that, it should horrify us. I think it should horrify us. I mean, I can be dead in 35 minutes when I'm trying to go home. Or 35 years, knock on wood. No, maybe by then I'll be too old. 35 is too much. Maybe 25 is good. And just I brought to you one message that we have received in our mediumship group about, from the Spirit, Abraham Lincoln. And I'm going to read to you. I greet you all with respect for this work. The human beings who inhabit this planet do not belong to such and such country. They are all citizens of the world and will experience life in many parts of this sphere that we call home. For now, you have been assigned to serve in this country, even though many of you are not originally from it. Of what importance is that? Actually, none. What is crucial is for you to embrace the people who will come to you as brothers and sisters, as they truly are. Work for the spiritual nourishment of this land, the cradle of freedom, and the one destined to lead others through its examples. Go and put forth your work. Declare to all the existence of the spiritual world. Many will regard you with disbelief, but you will be surprised at the number of those who are thirsting for this knowledge. A populous group of spiritual friends has been working from this side of life to prepare the terrain for this endeavor. It is up to you now to work as dedicated laborers, spreading the seeds and making sure they will receive the proper care in order to grow. Enlightened minds, but most importantly, dedicated hearts, have been tirelessly working in order for this to take place. Before returning to earth, you yourselves have accepted the task to come and to participate in this work. You know who we are, but we will remain humbly assigning all the results of our work to the one who came here to save us all. Be with Jesus in your hearts and work for the settlement of the spiritual constitution of this country. I think this message is so beautiful. It's very touching coming from the spirit of Abraham Lincoln, because now we see how much importance he puts in the spiritual settlement and the spiritual freedom, and how we have all been invited to partake in this spiritual banquet. So when I say again that all this knowledge is very important to us, we always have to remember that the mind without the heart cannot sustain itself. So we are here to use our minds to serve our hearts. And with our hearts and with the love and the understanding that we can bring, the compassion that we can bring from our brothers and sisters, we will be able to do things that we were supposed to be doing in this lifetime. And we will be able to be part of this great plan that goes beyond us, beyond our desires, that is bigger than all of us. It's bigger than Spiritism or any other label that we would like to put in any kind of belief. Because ultimately we have to learn that we are all brothers and sisters. And everything that can lead us to that, and to understand that we are all children of God, and with the possibility of renewal, of rebirth, of continuum of this immortality, we are all family. And we will continue learning how to love each other. Thank you so much.